Hello again, and welcome to the third and final lesson for this week. We will be finishing Unit 3 regarding cause and effect. We are focusing, of course, on the essay structure for cause and effect. In this lesson, we will focus on language, which is necessary for a good cause and effect, whether paragraph or essay. Also, I will explain your next assignment. So if you check the Facebook post, you would have seen there was some back and forth about grading. Nevertheless, you will have this assignment and it will go towards your practical grade. Remember that the practical is now an extra 5% weighting, so it went from 20 to 25. So this should help boost your grade because this is just an outline for an essay. You are not writing another essay. So this should be a pretty simple assignment. If you still don't understand cause and effect, it might be advisable for you to go back now and review the lessons 1 and 2 from this week before we move on, because we are talking about language. We're not going to be talking about so much of the structure or how to write an essay. And again, if you have questions, you need to post them on these lesson posts that are on Facebook. Okay? Well, I will explain the assignment later on in the PowerPoint. Let's get started on language. We are in Unit 3 still, and we are in your book, your textbook, and I will virtually see you on the next slide. We are starting on page 72 in your textbook. We're going to talk about two different types of connectors. Okay, so before we start, in the previous lessons, we discussed the purpose and the structure of cause and effect essays. Remember, the purpose of a cause and effect essay is to explain why something happens. And again, it could be a situation, a behavior, an action, so on and so forth. In order for us to do that, we have to logically show the relationship. Okay? We have to show the relationship between the cause and the effect, or causes and effects. So language helps us to do that. Now, if you'll look with me on page 72, you'll see it says cause connectors. Obviously, we'll also go over effect connectors. Again, it says in a cause and effect essay, connectors create coherence, okay, so unity, by indicating the relationship between ideas and sentences. And those ideas are most likely going to be cause and effect. We have to show the relationship, otherwise it does not make sense for cause and effect. Cause is the reason why something happens, and then the effect is the result of it. And we can use language like connectors to help to demonstrate that. So some of the most popular ones are here in your book, but you will also see I posted a chart for you here. Because is a very popular one. Again, like I said before, I'm from the old school, and we were taught not to use because at the beginning of a sentence. However, that style has changed, and it is acceptable for you to do it as long as you use it in a proper way, meaning that you use it at the beginning of a dependent clause and you have a complete sentence. So a dependent clause has to have an independent clause with it, okay? So a regular complex sentence, all right? And that's all this is really on page 72. It's still a complex sentences, one dependent clause and at least one, and then also an independent clause. There's nothing really new here. It's just that we're using a different strategy. So on page 72 in the gray box, hopefully you can see it. If not, then you know where to find the electronic copy of the book. It says use because or since to introduce a dependent clause. And you can use other words and other connectors, phrases. So here, as you can see on the chart, it's a mixture of cause and effect. you should be able to determine which one is appropriate for cause and which one's appropriate for effect. Okay, for example, stems from would obviously be cause. Let's see, caused by, okay, that's obviously cause. Okay, causes, cause. All right, so that is why, okay, cause. So you can use these different connectors, not just because and since. Because and since, they're very easy to use, but there are many other connectors, okay? So don't get too dependent on using just two words. All right, so you can use them at the beginning of the sentence in a dependent clause, and then the following you can have your main clause. Okay, so skipping to the middle of the gray box, we have because the traffic was heavy, or since the traffic was heavy, we were late for class. Okay, or we can, of course, we can always switch the clauses. Doesn't matter for a complex sentence, we can switch them. We were late for class because the traffic was heavy, or we were late for class since the traffic was heavy. Okay, again, depending on what kind of variation you need in your paragraphs, or if you're trying to give emphasis, will depend on if you put the dependent clause at the beginning of the sentence or at the end. That's totally up to you as the writer. Okay. All right. So we have we have that part. Now, connectors introducing a noun phrase. You can use due to, which is similar to because of. You can also use as a result of, which is quite popular. I'm sure you remember that from one of the essays that we read and discussed in the previous lesson. We can use that to introduce a noun phrase. Okay, and a noun phrase is just formed by a noun and its modifiers. For example, heavy traffic. This has no verb. So traffic is the noun, heavy is the adjective. So everything that goes with that noun makes a noun phrase. So in this case, heavy traffic. So there's nothing special about that. Go to the bottom and you will see exactly what they're talking about. Due to the heavy traffic, we were late for class. Okay, we were late for class due to the heavy traffic. Okay, but what I want you to take away from this is I want you to notice the relationship. Okay, so going back to the example in the middle, I'm going to say since. Since the traffic was heavy. Okay, I don't care about it being a dependent clause. Understand what it's saying. Since the traffic was heavy. That's the cause. The result was we were late for class. So let's just pretend like since the traffic was heavy, it doesn't matter, it being a dependent clause and an incomplete thought. Okay, so in the next sentence where we start with the main clause, we were late for class. Okay, so we were late for class. When in logical sense, if someone were to say to me, we were late for class, logically, I'm going to wonder what was the cause of that. That's just what we do as humans. Okay? Even if you came into my class and you said to me, I'm sorry I'm late. Okay. I'm going to naturally expect you to give me some kind of cause. I know the effect because I see that you're late. What was the cause? Okay, so I was late for class, or I'm sorry I'm late for class. Starting a new sentence, there was a lot of traffic on the way to Nablus. Okay, sure. All right. So even though that's two separate sentences, still we have a cause and we also have an effect. So it's not just about writing these special types of sentences. No, it's about logic and naturally what we do as humans. If you give me an effect, naturally I want to know the cause, and vice versa. Okay, so now let's skip on to page 74. And on page 74, you should see a box that talks about effect connectors. Okay, so in this case, there are many effect connectors that you use commonly in your writing all the time. Therefore, it shows a relationship because it shows an effect, it shows a consequence, an outcome. So if you start something, if you start, excuse me, not something, if you start a sentence with therefore, I expect the rest of the sentence to tell me about an effect. What's the outcome? Therefore, what? What's the outcome that you're going to tell me? Consequently, another very good one. By consequence, okay, this happened. As a result is very obvious. Result. And there are some others on the chart. Result in. Let's see, of course, we have therefore and consequently. Okay, and we have many others like as a consequence of. All right, so all of these are mixed in together, but you should be able to figure out the different ones. Also, so obviously is very popular. So is as a result of. Okay, is the result of. All of these different ones you can use. Okay, so you don't have to follow just what's in the book. You can follow these on this chart. You can also do your own research. Okay, so back to the book on page 74. We have when the clauses are joined into one sentence, the connector is always preceded by a semicolon and followed by a comma. So this is probably the type of essay where you can use semicolons more often. Of course, that doesn't mean like every other sentence you should use a semicolon. No. Okay, so just like we talked about before with however and therefore, all these different connectors I told you before, when you're combining them, you have to use it with a semicolon. So this is represented here in the book. I studied all weekend for the test, semicolon. As a result, comma, I got an A. So this is the best way to connect an effect connector. It's the best way to connect this kind of sentence because in this case, we want to put the cause in the front and then the effect after using this kind of connector. If you try to reverse it, it's not going to make sense. It's not going to look logical. For example, as a result, I got an A because I studied all weekend for the test. I mean, I think I've seen some people do that, but it's not the best practice. In this case, it's better just to separate it, okay? Instead of putting the effect first, you can just put the cause first because logically, the cause should come first, the reason, and then the result. Okay, so we connect it that way, or you can just separate the sentences into two separate sentences. That works perfectly fine. I studied all weekend for the test, period, or full stop. Consequently, I got an A. All right. So, of course, it depends on what you're writing. And like I said, the style and variation. These are simple sentences. If you write your entire essay with simple sentences, that's a problem. Okay, so you're going to have to vary up, of course, your language and create longer sentences as well. But this is just an example. All right, so now that we understand cause connectors, how to use them and why we use them, and effect connectors, how and why we use them, let's do a let's do a little bit of practice. Before we start some practice, I added this slide in just to make sure that you understand cause and effect connectors. Okay, so the first one in purple is the cause connector. You will see that the dependent clause is started with a cause connector, due to. So these are my examples. The first one says, due to the advent of COVID-19. Okay, so in that dependent clause, I have alerted the reader that I have given you a cause and I'm going to now give you the effect of this cause. So my effect Chinese and other Asian nationalities are facing racist attacks and discrimination. Okay, this is a complex sentence, so of course we can reverse it. We can put the dependent clause at the end. We can say Chinese and other Asian nationalities are facing racist attacks and discrimination due to the advent of COVID-19, full stop. Either one works just fine. Okay, so it makes it very clear to my reader the relationship that I'm trying to highlight. All right, so now we have an effect connector, and I want you to carefully notice what I've underlined. Okay, I want you to carefully notice the connector. The global temperature has been rising since the Industrial Revolution. As a result, this phenomena has been causing detrimental effects to the environment. Okay, so, sorry, that's my book. Just to make sure you understand, when you looked at the cause connectors, you would have seen as a result of. As a result of, when you add the preposition of, makes it a cause connector. Okay, as a result of. So that means that of, I'm giving you a reason. Okay, hopefully I was clear in the last slide about that as well. As a result of. The effects connector is as a result, no of. Because that tells the reader that I'm going to give you the consequence. So just that one word makes a huge difference. So if I would have written this sentence, this sentence trying to use as a result of, I might have made an illogical sentence. So as a result, okay? Now, of course, we can change the sentence or any of these sentences and flip them. I can make the effect a sentence a cause and vice versa. Okay, easy to do. I mean, we're just showing the relationship. Anyway, also for the effect connector sentence, you can combine it using the semicolon. You would put the semicolon after revolution, okay, and as a result, of course, and then comma. So we can do it that way. All right, so now that that's clear, let's do some practice. I want you to remember that when we are studying specific topics in language, the hard part about this is actually using this language in your writing. This practice is just to make sure that you understand the immediate concept. But adding this type of language to your writing is the tricky part. Let's go ahead and start on page 73. And I'll add a little note at the end. Okay, so on page 73, we're on exercise 4. We're talking about cause connectors. It asks you to combine each pair of sentences to show cause and effect. You're going to use the connector in parentheses that's located at the end of the sentence. I will put my answers on the screen. They might be just slightly different. I might have changed around something, but it's the same thing. So you basically can take these sentences, add a few words and punctuation, and that's it. So I'll give you a moment to look at number 1 so you can see the structure. Take a moment. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to number 2. People are living longer. They are receiving better medical treatment. Use the word since. Take a moment. Since people are receiving better medical treatment, they are living longer. If we wanted to switch the sentence around, we would want to put the specific noun at the beginning and the pronoun at the end. You could say, people are living longer since they are receiving better medical treatment. Okay, number 3, orchestras are trying to attract a younger audience. Reduced rates at concert halls are available for many high school students. Use the word because. Take a moment. Because orchestras are trying to attract a younger audience, comma, reduced rates at concert halls are available for many high school students. Okay, of course we can switch it if we wanted to. Okay, number 4, research has shown that it reduces stress. More and more individuals are practicing yoga. So remember, you need to put the specific noun at the beginning and the pronoun at the end. You're using the word since, and take a moment. Since research has shown that yoga reduces stress, more and more people are practicing it. All right. So now let's move on to page 74. We're going to skip exercise 5. Go on to page 74, exercise 6. In this exercise, we're combining each pair of sentences to show cause and effect yet again. Use the connector in parentheses at the end of the sentence. Take a moment to look at number 1 structure. I'm sure that you've noticed the difference between the cause connector and the effect connector. The effect connector is not a complex sentence. It's a compound sentence. It's 2 independent or main clauses that can be connected. And in this case, for cause and effect, we don't connect it with a fanboy. We connect it with a semicolon, or we just separate the sentences. All right. So number 2 says, the fire caused major damage to the school auditorium. We will have the performance in the town hall. Please use the word consequently. Take a moment. The fire caused major damage to the school auditorium. Semicolon, consequently, we will have the performance in the town hall. Okay. Of course, we can always take that semicolon out and add a full stop, capitalize the C in consequently. Number 3 says many farmers moved to California. The Great Depression was devastating. Please use as a result. Take a moment. The Great Depression was devastating. Full stop. As a result, many farmers moved to California. Okay, notice I didn't say as a result of, as a result. All right, so we're not going to do number 4. If you would like to do more practice, of course, you're most welcome to finish the rest of these exercises, and you can always post questions on the Facebook page if you can't figure it out or you have a question. No problem about that. Okay, so again, like I said in the beginning, the trick is to use this type of language in your writing. So again, we need to show the relationship in each body paragraph. These sentences are isolated, so this is just for practice. This is not showing you for the whole essay. So if you go back to the sample essays 1 and 2, let me help you out there. So if you go back to 65 and 66, the effects of a positive outlook on our lives, and also the essay on pages 69 and 70, factors that lead to success in college, you'll notice that all of the paragraphs show cause and effect within them. It uses this type of language, okay? In each body paragraph, it uses cause connectors or effect connectors, and it also uses conditional sentences, which we'll get into on the next slide. So this is because the body paragraphs are focusing on one aspect, whether it's 3 causes or 3 effects. Those body paragraphs have to relate back to the one cause or the one effect. Why? Because we need to explain why a situation happens, why behavior happens, so on and so forth. We need to explain the reason. And in order to do that, we have to show the relationship. So in your body paragraphs, if no relationship is shown, you're not proving anything. You're just talking. And it makes absolutely no sense. Cause and effect is about showing the relationship. So using this type of language will help you to do that. Now, does that mean every single sentence in each body paragraph should be like this? Should it be a cause connector or an effect connector or a conditional sentence, which we'll get into soon? No, that doesn't mean every single sentence should be that way. Most sentences should, but not every single one. Okay? That would look a bit ridiculous, of course. Remember that variation in writing is very important. You use them when you have to. You use them when you need to. It's just like when you're speaking to a friend or someone, if you're trying to explain cause and effect to someone. Let's say your friend does not understand. Your friend cannot understand why you were late to their meeting. For example, let's say your friend wanted to meet somewhere in Nablus, but you live in Ramallah, okay? And you were late to get to that meeting in Nablus. And your friend cannot, for the life of him or her, understand why you were late, okay? So you're probably going to go into detail and try to explain to your friend the causes of you being late. So the effect is that you were late. The causes is what you need to explain because that makes logical sense. You wouldn't keep saying to your friend who keeps nagging you and bothering you, you're late, you're late, you're late. You're not going to keep responding to your friend, yeah, I'm late, I'm late, I'm late. No, you're going to explain to your friend the causes of why you were late because it makes logical sense and you want your friend to shut up. I'm just going to be very blunt with you to help you understand. So you might go into detail and say, okay, Ramallah is not technically close to Nablus. It's about an hour away due to, of course, the occupation situation and the fact that it is a distance. Okay, so you might have to go into detail and explain that cause. You might have to explain another cause, like your mother called you when you left the house. You forgot something and you had to go back. I don't know, whatever. You're going to explain those causes. If you're having a difficult time trying to figure out any topic, try to relate it back to reality. Okay? The only reason that we do this is to help express ourselves better. Writing is not in place to torture anyone. It's to help us express ourselves logically and well. Okay? So think of a situation in which that you would actually have to explain the causes of an effect, or in which you would have to explain the effects of a cause. Okay? And how you would do that in Arabic would probably be similar to what it is in English. But of course, the grammar and the words are different. But it doesn't matter what language, it's the same logical idea. All right, so I hope that helped you to understand a little bit more about cause and effect. Now, in the next slide or slides, we will look at conditionals. You've seen these before. It's just the name of something that you already know. So I'll explain it pretty quickly and we'll do some practice and go from there. As I mentioned in the previous slide, this is not new to you, so I'm really not going to take a lot of time. I did say in the next slides, but I decided just to make it pretty succinct. So in one section, we're going to go through all of this. Okay, so we're not going to really do much practice. So let's start with, first start on page 76, if you haven't already gotten to that page. Let's start with, what is a condition? Okay, or in this case, it's better to probably talk about what is conditional. Conditional means that based on a situation or based on a condition, something will happen. So that means it's cause and effect. And you've been writing conditional sentences forever. Did you know it was cause and effect? So if I go to the store is a cause, then I will be able to buy groceries. That's the result. That's it. Quite simply. Um, Conditional sentences are great in cause and effect because it's very clear to the writer the relationship that you're trying to make. So a lot of times, if someone does not understand something, we might revert to a conditional sentence to make it absolutely clear. If is the cause, then is the result. Okay? For example, let's use that friend example. If Ramallah were closer to Nablus, then I would have been able to get here on time. Or if there was no traffic, then I would have been able to get from Ramallah to Nablus on time. Okay? So sometimes we have to use that type of language to make it absolutely clear about the cause and effect. So looking at page 76, conditional sentences express cause and effect, for sure. A conditional sentence has a dependent if clause and a main clause. So again, we're talking about complex sentences, nothing new. So the if clause for sure is dependent because it's an incomplete thought. If I go to the store. Okay, what? What are you trying to tell me? Okay, so it needs a main clause. It's a complex sentence. Nothing more to say about that. Okay, so there are there are two types of conditional sentences, real and unreal. Okay, so it's not too difficult. It's really what it is. All right, so real means it's in the present, something that is actually happening or can happen. Whereas unreal is something that has not happened. We don't know. We're just kind of talking. It's imaginary. All right, so let's start with real conditionals. They express situations that may or may not happen. The if clause describes a possible condition or event, and then the main clause shows a possible result. So again, condition is still up in the air. Okay, so it's something that can happen. So what we would do is we would use the the simple present in the if clause. In the main clause, we'll also use the simple present. We can use will, can, should, may. It depends on how certain you are about the result. You can also use the imperative form. Imperative is like when you give an order, like stay in your seat, go to bed, for example. Okay? When the if clause is first, you use a comma, just like in a regular complex sentence. Nothing different. If you start with a dependent clause, you must use a comma after it. That's it. If you reverse it and start with the main clause in the beginning of the sentence, you do not need a comma. So the example says, we're in the gray box here, if I get the new job, then I will make more money. Okay? Now you notice that then is in parentheses. This doesn't mean that you write your sentence this way. You don't write then in parentheses. I think that's obvious, but it's just saying that you can put the word then, but you don't have to. Okay? So again, it's all about your style of writing, and it's also about emphasis. If I use the word then, I'm adding emphasis for my reader. If I get the new job, then I will make more money. But I don't have to use it. If I get the new job, I will make more money. It's fine. All right. You can reverse it like we already talked about. I will make more money if I get the new job. Perfect. The next part, the last bullet, in conditional sentences, either clause or both clauses can be negative. Okay, so there's your rule. If I am not on time, I take the bus. Okay? If I am not on time, I will not walk to work. I don't know what you're going to do, but we know what you're not going to do, and you're not going to walk to work. Okay? So grammatically, it's fine if you use not in both clauses or one or the other. Okay? Pretty simple. Let's move on to page 77 and look at this lovely chart here that talks about real conditionals. You can see from the left side, if plus simple present. If I leave at 8, that's the simple present. It's conjugated with I. Okay, you can add the word then, or you can take it out. And again, we use simple present. I catch the bus. All right, perfectly self-explanatory. Of course, you would use a comma. The next one on the left, the next row on the left, if again plus simple present, we can use then, and then the imperative. If you do not, if you do not feel well, comma, stay in bed. So I'm giving a cause and I'm giving an effect, but I'm also giving a command. Okay? From experience, this is something, this is grammar that I think my mother used quite a bit, and probably your mother did as well, or your mother and father used. If you don't want to go, don't go. That's it. All right. So I'm giving you a cause and effect, a possible cause and a possible result, but I'm also giving you a command. Okay. So we can use this kind of language for real conditionals. Now, if you look in the second column, which is on the right, first row, we have the if clause. Again, we're using simple present. If we are late. Okay, now in the main clause, we're using future. Perfectly acceptable. We will call you. Easy. So you can use simple present, and then you can use, you can use the future in the main clause. If we are late, then we will call you. So based on this condition, this cause, this possible cause, I'm telling you as the result in the future, then we'll call you. Okay, the second column and the second row in the second column on the right, if plus simple present again, and then we have a modal. Okay, so if you're not sure what a modal is, modal may, okay, must, should, could, would. Those are our modals in English, okay? Again, may, or you can negate it, may not, must, must not, should not, would not, could not. Those are modals. So, if plus simple present, if you do not hurry, you may be late. So why do we use modals? Modals are often used in conditionals because it's based on a possibility, and modals demonstrate a possibility. I don't know. Maybe you'll be late. I'm not sure. You may be late. I'm not saying for sure versus will. If you do not hurry, you will be late. All right? That means I know for sure. Okay? But I don't know. So I'm using a modal. You may be late. Okay? All right. So that's it for the conditionals. I hope you've noticed that in each of the if clauses, we use if plus simple present. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means if you're using a real conditional, your if clause should always use simple present. All right, but you have a diversity of options for the main clause. If you'd like to do extra practice, you can. Really quickly, you'll see exercise 1, number 1 is asking you to, the whole section is asking you to write this sentence in a real conditional sentence. Number 1 says, take a computer course and have better job opportunities. If you take a computer course, comma, you will have better job opportunities. Easy. Number 2, study hard and pass the test. If you study hard, you will pass the test. Or you may pass the test. You can say it that way. Or you pass the test. You can say many different versions of that. So we're going to go ahead and move on to unreal conditionals. So unreal conditionals obviously is the opposite of real conditionals. This means that it is imaginary. Okay, so real conditionals, it may or may not happen. It's a possibility for the cause and effect. However, when we talk about unreal, it means it's imaginary. Completely imaginary, okay, situation. So we use different language to demonstrate that. On page 77 in the gray box, it says unreal conditional sentences express imaginary situations. The if clause describes a condition or event that is not true at the time of writing. Okay, so again, we're talking about a time situation. Imaginary, we don't mean like there's fairies and unicorns. We just mean that at this time of writing, it is not logical. It's not something that is true or will happen at this particular time. It's not possible. All right, so the main clause shows the imaginary result of the condition. The main clause does. So let's look at a few examples. So use the simple past in the if clause if we're using unreal conditionals. In the main clause, we would use those modals, would, could, or might. And also, when the if clause is first, we use the comma, as we already know. All right, so it's the same thing as complex sentences. Let's look at the examples. If she studied harder, studied is the simple past. Our main clause says she would get better grades. It's completely conditional. The imaginary result is in the main clause. She would get better grades. At the time of writing, this is imaginary. Okay? It's something that's not true. The second sentence is just the reverse. She would get better grades if she studied harder. Still, the main clause represents the imaginary situation, and the if clause represents the cause, and the verb is in simple past. So if we go to page 78, we have unreal conditionals. We have another chart. And this one's a little bit simpler to navigate. So the first row, we have if plus simple past. If I had a car. You can add the word then. The main clause says I would ride to work. All right. The second row, if we had more money, then, or we don't have to put then, we could buy a car. So what's the difference then between would and could? Okay, would is the conditional we usually relate to will. So definitely for sure, if this person had a car, he or she would definitely ride to work. Versus the second one, it could relates to ability. Okay, it's not saying that if we actually had more money that for sure we would buy that car. It's saying that we could, we have the ability to, but doesn't mean that we will. Okay, the third row, if I had more time off. Okay, then, or maybe without then. I might drive to Florida. I might, maybe. You can't say I maybe drive to Florida, so might would be obviously the choice. I might drive to Florida. Again, we don't know. You could say I would. If I had more time off, I would drive to Florida, but it's the same like I said before. This person saying I might, maybe, okay? Not even about the ability. It's just all up in the air. All right, so that is what we mean by unreal conditionals. Okay, so if you already knew this, that this was a review, and the point of this is for you to use it in your writing. If you need some practice, go for it. And exercise 2, number 1 is done for you. Snow in Hawaii / go skiing. If it snowed in Hawaii, people could go skiing. Notice that for unreal conditionals, the if clause always includes simple past. You can change the main clause, but the if clause always uses simple past. All right, so on page 79, I highly recommend that you do this as practice. I'm not going to go into the corrections and everything like that because I don't want to take too much time on this PowerPoint. I want to explain to your assignment. Been talking too much today. So exercise 4, it asks you to read the paragraph, correct the mistakes in real and unreal conditionals, and there are 7 mistakes. All right, so if you understand everything about conditionals, everything about effect connectors, everything about cause connectors, please use them. Okay, so use them in your upcoming outline. All right, so you're not going to have to write another essay. You're going to do an outline, but still, you should use this type of language in your outline. All right, so that's it for the language part. You can do more practice in part 5, putting it all together. But for me, putting it all together is going to be doing an actual outline and demonstrating your skills. So let me explain the assignment to you. I know that all of you can read. However, some of you need a little bit more explanation than others. So if you feel like I'll just download it and read it and understand it myself, go for it. You can actually just stop at this point. I would suggest going to the last slide that says upcoming and then just move on. Okay, so anyway, so for those of you that need a little bit more explanation, you will find this document as a Word document, not a PDF this time, because you can take this document and actually write your assignment on this document. You don't have to copy and paste it. You don't have to print the PDF and write on it. No, you can just do it on your computer. If you do this on your phone or tablet, hats off to you. That's a little difficult, but whatever it takes for you to do this. All right. You will find this in the cause and effect unit section on the Facebook page. You will also find it in the cause and effect section on Moodle. You will also find the area to submit your assignment on Moodle. Okay, so all of these assignments have to be uploaded where? Moodle. So it is due, I extended the date actually, Tuesday, March 31st. Originally I had Monday. It's Tuesday, March 31st by 11:59 p.m. in your time zone. Your time zone, okay? So the instructions, you're just going to choose a topic that I've given you here. I've given you 6 topics to choose from. You can only use one of these topics. And you're going to create an outline just as if you were going to write an essay. And you're going to do exactly what's on this outline. You've done this before, and you've seen this outline before. I have added some extra areas to it just to make it more specific so I understand that you know what you're doing. But in any case, you've seen this before. Everything should be familiar to you. So you're going to model this exactly, which is why I'm giving you the Word document version. If you don't have Word doc, then I'm sure you have Google Docs and you should be able to figure out how to download it. Otherwise, ask a friend, okay? Or ask a classmate. So again, choose one of the topics below. You'll notice that some topics are similar, but they are not the same as the book and they're not the same as the exam. So make sure you read it carefully. Remember that even if the question asks you only about causes or effects, you have to present both cause and effect in your essay. Whether you're going to only talk about a cause or a effect in your introduction, and then talk about 3 causes or 3 effects in your bodies, or if you're going to only, let's say you're going to do 1 paragraph about a cause and then 2 paragraphs about 2 different effects. You can do whichever style. We already talked about that in the previous lesson. Remember, it depends on your topic, okay? Now, if you're having difficulty, go back to the previous lessons and also refer to your book. And if you're still having difficulty, you can always ask me on the Facebook post. Again, just to reiterate, you're not completing an essay from this outline. Just submit the outline. Do take it seriously and do not plagiarize. Do not copy and paste an outline from the internet. Please don't do that. Also, do not copy and paste from your friend in one of my classes or a peer in one of my classes, because it will tell me if you did, okay? And you must submit it through Moodle. You cannot email it to me, so do not even think about saying, oh, Zagil doesn't work, Moodle doesn't work, can't give it to you that way, I'm emailing it to you. I'm not even going to respond to you. It's a 0. I'm not going to. So, Moodle, figure it out, okay? Tuesday, March 31st, we have topics. What are the causes of happiness? What are the effects of success? And the reason I underlined causes and effects is because in your book, it's flipped, okay? In your book, it's the effects of happiness. And well, I don't want you to use the information from the book. So I changed it to causes, all right? So just remember that. C says, what are the causes of discrimination? Any type specify, okay? You're not going to talk about all forms of discrimination. Pick one. What are the effects of pollution? Any type. You might choose all types of pollution. Go for it if you want to. However, you really should specify and talk about one type of pollution. E, what are the causes of poverty in general? So it's different from the exam. On the exam, I talked about, I think it was the effects, and I asked you to talk about it for an individual. This one is flipped. For F, what are the causes of stress in our society today? All right. So as you can see at the bottom, it says you must write incomplete sentences for all sections. The only section that you do not have to write incomplete sentences are the supporting details, those sections. So you can write in phrases. Now, if you write in sentences for everything, that's wonderful, excellent. I think it shows that you really understand it. But because I've added extra sections to this outline, and because I want to kind of help alleviate some of your workload, I'm not requiring that you write complete sentences in the support section. I recommend it, I would like it, but you don't have to, so I'm not going to mark you down if you don't. Okay, next slide. The next 2 pages is a part of the outline itself. As you can see, I've added a section in the introduction paragraph. I've also added a section in the conclusion. All I want you to do is fill in the blank. You can take this document and type within it. I've given you the outline. Everything is here. You can copy and paste it into a different document. That's fine. You don't need to take out any words. So for example, when you write your hook, right after the colon, just type your hook. Don't take anything out. Save it, submit it to Moodle. Okay. On Moodle, you can upload it as a Word document or you can upload it as a PDF. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, next slide. The third page of the document is just the grading rubric. Remember that I always like to give you a rubric to show you how I'm going to grade it. This is going to be very simple. I'm really not going to focus too much time on this rubric. I'm just going check, 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 check. Hopefully most of you get proficient, but if you're afraid of getting a poor grade, look at the rubrics before you start doing anything, because I've told you how I'm going to grade you exactly. There's no guessing game in this case. So it's out of 24 points, okay? Now you'll notice that it says at the bottom late submission. Usually for my rubrics, I always put that if it's late, you're going to get a 60% once you submit it. For the sake of this whole virtual online situation that we're in, I've given you a 24-hour grace period. So that means that if you do not submit it on Tuesday, March 31st by 11:59, that means you will have until 11:59 p.m. on April 1st. Moodle will let you submit it up until that time, okay? If you have not submitted it up until that time, then you can just expect for me to give you a 50. Do not email me and say, it wasn't working, I couldn't submit it on time, and you've closed the Moodle window, so I'm emailing it to you. It's a 50%. It's an F. I'm not even going to listen. If you have a problem with that, you can contact Dr. Sufyan or the dean, but I've given you plenty of time. By now you should know how to use Moodle. If you do your assignment on time, you have 48 hours to get it uploaded. Even if Zagil is down for a couple of hours, if you do your work on time, there's still no excuse. If there is a major problem, a major outage, something dramatic happens, you have to email me or Facebook message me before the deadline. If you tell me after, I'm just going to assume that you're trying to get over. I'm just going to assume the worst, that you're guilty before I prove you innocent, okay? Email me in advance or message me in advance to tell me that you're having a problem. Otherwise, 50%. So sorry. All right, so that's the end of the assignment explanation. I'm just going to really quickly on the last slide give you some upcoming details. Next slide. All right, everyone, that's enough talking for today. This ends the lesson for this week on cause and effect, and that is it. Next week, you can expect not to use your book. We're going to talk about research methodology. We may take maybe 1 or 2 weeks on research methodology. It really depends on how you respond to that. My plan is to try to do a Facebook Live session or a Zoom session in which you can ask me questions or advice live, because some of you might be struggling at this point. It is difficult to do a writing class, of course, completely virtually, and I do understand that and respect your frustrations. Just give me a little bit of time. So we will talk about research methodology. The great thing is most research is done online anyway, so you're already ready for that. Then we will start Unit 4 on argumentative essays. You will be expected to write an argumentative essay, and you will be expected to edit on your own. There will be no first draft, there will be no second draft. It will just be you edit on your own, and you maybe send your essay to a peer or someone to help you out, and that's it. You submit your final draft for your argumentative essay. As for your second draft for your process analysis essay, I have them. And once you get feedback from me, general feedback from me, then you can edit again. Do not expect for me to go through your essay and make notes of everything. I'm only sending you a couple of lines and saying, I think you should look at this, this, and this. Maybe you should correct this. Maybe you should add this. That's it. Okay, I'm only looking at the structure. that'll be given back to you in the next few weeks. As far as grades, I'm afraid that things will keep changing, so I do not want to release grades at this time. If you have missing assignments, you have missing assignments, okay? Before I left, I gave some of you extra time to get me the corrected versions of those assignments on Google Drive. If you did not submit them, that window is over, okay? At this point, focus on the future assignments. If you have questions, please post them on the lesson. If you have on the lesson Facebook post, sorry. If your questions are very personal, then of course you can always Facebook message me. All right. In the meantime, have a great weekend and stay safe, stay healthy, and take care.